Hey, it's David, and welcome back to another episode of the Reddit Story podcast.
As I stare out the tiny oval window, watching the distant land, my heart races with anxiety and excitement. I'm flying to a city I've never visited before, and I'm about to plunge into the unfamiliar lives of relatives I barely know. Just a month ago, I was Helen, a small-town art teacher, modest but content in her tiny studio apartment filled with half-finished canvases. Then I met Xavier, an up-and-coming executive who inexplicably fell in love with me, buying one of my amateur paintings on a whim. Before I realized what was happening, he proposed and whisked me away to a new life of luxury as his wife. Our courtship was a dizzying succession of lavish get-togethers, champagne toasts in his penthouse overlooking the glittering cityscape, and conversations that dragged on until dawn. The love in the post was passionate. Xavier was an attentive and generous lover. Taking me in his arms, he looked at me with warm brown eyes and whispered how incredibly lucky he was to have found me. It was everything I'd never even dared to dream of in my life. So when he begged me to visit his parents to help care for his mother who was very ill, I couldn't say no. To this day, my heart still pounds with excitement as the plane descends toward the unfamiliar city where Xavier's family, now my family, awaits my arrival. I desperately hope I can care for his mother and please his father, Albert. I must convince them that I am worthy of their only son, despite our crazy marriage. The airplane lowers to the tarmac and rolls up to the gate. I stroke my sundress with my hands and take a deep breath, gaining strength. Soon I'm making my way through the busy terminal to the arrivals hall. My gaze scans the crowd until I spot him, Albert. Xavier looks a lot like his father, the same strong jaw, intense gaze, confident posture, but Albert's salt and peach hair and weathered face give him an appeal that surpasses his son's boyish charm. My breath catches when our gazes meet. "You must be Helen," he says, squeezing my hand. His grip is warm, firm. "Welcome." We walk across the parking lot to his luxury SUV. As we drive to his luxurious home, the conversation between us flows easily. Albert asks thoughtful questions about my painting and offers encouraging words about making a name for himself in his city's vibrant art scene. When we pull up to the house, he gives me a brief tour and then shows me the luxurious guest bedroom where I will be staying. I notice that he keeps his eyes on my body in the light sundress. Although I've gotten used to men's admiring gazes since I married Xavier, the sight of my father-in-law makes my pulse quicken. At dinner that night, the atmosphere becomes increasingly tense. Albert's lingering glances become overtly seductive. It's wrong, I say to myself, because he's my husband's father. And yet I catch myself shamelessly responding to his flirtations. Later, as I lie awake, a restless desire flares up in me. It's dangerous. Albert is above suspicion. But I'm thousands of miles away from home and Xavier, alone and vulnerable in this luxurious mansion with my handsome father-in-law, who knows how to charm a woman. I clench my thighs tightly, feeling the familiar ache of longing. Somehow, I know I won't be able to stop what's simmering between Albert and me. And as terrified as I am of my own lust, I feel as horny as I've ever felt in my young life. Tomorrow this game will begin in earnest, swearing at propriety. And so help me God, I won't be able to resist seeing where it leads. Morning sunlight streams into my luxurious guest bedroom. I stretch lazily before the memories of last night, and my fantasies come flooding back at me with renewed vigor. Albert's sly gaze that undressed me as effectively as if he'd used his hands, my panting flirtation, the charged air that hung between us. Desire still simmers in my soul, despite the guilt. This man is my husband's father. And yet the attraction is undeniable, this electric chemistry too strong to resist exploring. I stand up and put on a revealing sundress, preparing myself for this dangerous game. Albert sits at the massive dining room table and looks through the newspaper. He slowly lowers the paper as I enter, and his burning eyes trace every inch of my body, Good morning, Helen. I hope you slept well? His tone is casual, but an inviting smile plays on his lips. We make idle, casual conversation during breakfast, but the words seem trifling, our intense gazes conveying everything. When I accidentally drop my napkin and drop my gaze to Albert's bare thighs to pick it up, his nostrils flare almost imperceptibly. I hide a smirk, pleased that I can bewitch this formidable man. When we finish eating, Albert invites me to take a tour of the expansive mansion with him. In the master bedroom, he shows off Marie's enormous walk-in closet, and I look at her elegant dresses, imagining the lavish parties once thrown in this house. Turning to Albert, I see that he's staring hungrily at me. In 2 quick steps, he closes the space between us, pinning me against the closet wall. One large hand wraps around my throat, and he roughly tilts my chin upward. If you want me to stop, just say so, he growls. I know I should run, but defiance and tirelessly makes me stand still. Let him make the first move. In response to my silence, his mouth presses against mine, the kiss strong and long and filled with years of suppressed longing. My hands slide down his broad chest and clutch his silver hair tightly. We engulf each other until we're both panting. In one smooth motion, Albert easily lifts me up and carries me to the bed and lays me on it, pulling me against him with his solid weight. We stare at each other greedily, my heart pounding frantically. Tell me you want this, Helen. Yes, Albert, yes, I whimper. That's all the encouragement he needs before his big hands start doing their work. Finally, there are no barriers between us. The world fades away from what's happening. His expert touch ignites parts of my body that I didn't even know existed until now. He masterfully plays with my body. Any lingering feelings of guilt towards my husband fade away, only Albert remains. When we both finally tip over the edge, the force of my climax blinds my vision for a moment. As I sink back into my body, Albert collapses beside me, breathing heavily, and his earlier restraint is replaced by satisfaction with his eyes closed. That was. This time the words don't help the menacing man. I know, I reply quietly. We exchange smiles full of new secrets. What we've just discovered can never be taken back. The thought is terrifying and intoxicating. The world will never look the same again. I slowly wake up, forgetting for a moment where I am. Memories of the past few days spent in Albert's strong, friendly embrace came flooding back to me. My return to the guest bedroom just before dawn to get a couple hours of sleep before reprising my role as the caring daughter-in-law when Avier called. The tumultuous secret affair with my father-in-law has become my exciting new double life. As I dress and prepare for another day of adventure, my reflection stares back at me from the ornate mirror. Flushed cheeks, lips swollen from kissing, a glint in my eyes that wasn't there before. Under Albert's experienced hands, I am transformed into a sensual, desirable woman I never knew existed. The shy art teacher is gone, replaced by a confident temptress. I catch Albert with a cup of coffee at the kitchen island, studying papers. He lifts his head, a spark flashing in his eyes as he circles my curves in the tight sundress. "Good morning, beautiful," he purrs. Unable to resist, I move to him from behind, wrapping my arms around the hard planes of his chest. He makes a sound like a throaty growl that makes me shiver. Xavier called earlier. He said hi, Albert remarks casually, though his body betrays tension. I freeze for a moment. My husband's blinding reality is like a downpour of ice water that brings me back to sanity. What am I doing? Sensing my sudden guilt, Albert turns to face me. Change your mind? He takes me by the chin. Do you want to be Marie again, to lead a safe, passionless existence again? His words throw me back from the brink, awakening the defiance in me. Take me back to the bedroom, Albert, I whisper recklessly. He obeys with a rascally grin. Soon Xavier and everything else disappears, and Albert and I are plunged back into our not usual adventure. In the days that follow, We have established an unspoken routine. Mornings filled with provocative glances at breakfast. Albert's hot hands constantly finding ways to drag me into the spare rooms. In the evenings, I've lounged in his arms, lazily chatting, and our connection has grown deeper. We talk about art, books, dreams, never about the outside world. Sometimes guilt gnaws at me. When Xavier calls, Albert watches me intently while I make light small talk with my oblivious husband. I must confess, and destroy Xavier's peace, his family? Albert seems to read my mind, constantly bringing me back from the brink with intoxicating kisses until I forget my own name. Sometimes at the mention of Xavier, a dark jealousy flashes in Albert's eyes. I assure Albert that he owns my soul, and yet a tiny doubt remains. Can Albert ever fully share me? For now, our private bliss is uninterrupted as Marie sleeps a serene sleep in the hospital. But I know that this dazzling dream of both men's devotion cannot last forever. I'm balancing on the tightrope between them, expecting I'm about to fall. But I will enjoy these warm days and nights while they last. I slipped silently back into the darkened guest room, my heart still racing. I had just left Albert's room after hours of passionate adventure, both of us insatiable for each other. As I reached up to turn on the bedside lamp, a harsh voice pierced the shadows. "Where have you been?" I gasp and turn around and see Xavier staring at me from the chair in the corner, his handsome face contorted with rage. He leaps to his feet and crosses the room in 2 strides, grabbing me roughly by the shoulders. "I asked you a question. Why are you sneaking in here at 5 in the morning wearing my father's shirt?" He shakes me awake as realization hits him. "You're sleeping with him, aren't you?" "With my own father." I deny helplessly, but the pure truth is written all over my face. The expression on Xavier's face changes from anger to anguish. He abruptly lets go of me and turns away with a guttural cry of despair. My heart is torn apart when I see the man I love in such agony. I realize that our marriage will never recover from this ultimate betrayal. "Xavier, please." I hesitantly reach for him, but he jerks back to meet my gaze. "How could you do this to me?" "To me." "To our family?" His voice trails off half-heartedly. Seeing his pain, I unleash my own raging emotions. "You left me alone with him," I exclaim accusingly. "You barely know me, and already you've thrown me into this den of temptation." I gesture wildly around the luxurious mansion. Xavier stares at me. "Are you really implying that this is my fault?" His indignation flares with renewed vigor. I tried to resist him. I insist desperately. But we have this deep connection. He understands parts of me that you've never been interested in. Xavier flinches as if I've slapped him. "That connection is called meanness, Helen," he hissed venomously. "I thought what we had was love. Now I realize I was only a stepping stone in your social ascent into my own family." His cruel words spur my fervor. "How dare you? If you really loved me, you would know who I really am." Hot tears flow down my cheeks. There is a tense silence between us, rage in the air. I realize with a sinking heart that this is all too bad. For all the passion between us, by giving in to selfish desire, Albert and I have broken something that cannot be repaired. The bedroom door creaks open. We turn around in unison to see Albert's enormous silhouette. Xavier makes a strangled sound of rage in his throat. "Get out of my house," he snaps at his father. Albert's eyes cross over to me without reading. Without a word, he turns and walks away. The soft click of the front door closing completes the death knell of my shattered marriage. Xavier's devastated eyes meet mine one last time. "I wish I had never met you," he whispers. Those words hurt my heart. He pushes past me and I fall to the floor, choking back sobs. I have everything I wanted: passion, prestige, luxurious comfort. But I see now that the price was too high. I'd give back the last month if I could. My bargain with the devil has ruined my life, and my soul is empty. I am truly cursed.